We're live.
Very good. Thank you so much, Steve. Welcome to a special City Council meeting today for June the 2nd, 2020. Madam Clerk.
Prior to roll call, the city attorney would like to make an announcement regarding the teleconferencing of this meeting this evening.
Good afternoon. As you know, the governor has issued executive orders to facilitate social distancing in response to the coronavirus pandemic. The orders relax requirements that pertain to remote meetings under the Brown Act and allow this council to hold public meetings by teleconference. We have adopted procedures for this meeting that meet or exceed the standards set forth in the governor's orders. And for more information, you may refer to Governor Gavin Newsom's executive order N-25-20. Now, Madam Clerk, please conduct roll call, and I would ask the mayor to recognize me afterward to confirm certain matters for the record.
Will do.
Councilmember Hudson.
Here.
Councilmember Alone.
Here.
Councilmember Perkins.
Here.
Vice Mayor Zafar.
Here.
And Mayor Clarkson.
Here.
Okay.
Martin, go ahead.
Thank you. I would now like to verify that 1, all members of the council can hear me well. 2, that all members of the council have been able to hear all previous speakers, including the roll call. And 3, that each council member believes, based on factual or voice recognition or otherwise, that all persons representing themselves to be a council member are in fact council members. If all 3 statements are
Yes,
true.
but I do not see Dave. Dave, could you acknowledge, please?
They're having seen all 5 acknowledgements.
Okay,
I'll turn it back over to the mayor.
thank you. First off, item 2, I guess, is public comment. Christina, do you have any?
For those that are in the audience and would like to speak under public comment, please click the raise your hand button at this time or star 9 on your telephone. And it looks like we have 1 request to speak.
Please, we asked folks that they could keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. Go right ahead.
Luz Gomez is the first speaker.
Good afternoon, City Council. Wow, what days we're facing. So I have a process question, and I realize this is a comment section of the agenda, but the process is I would sure like to be able to comment after I have heard staff's report during each of the 2 items on the agenda, rather than commenting now on both items at the same time. So I'm wondering if it would be possible for me to listen to staff reports on the 2 items and then have an opportunity to comment on that.
Great question. I'm going to turn to our city attorney, Martin. Yes, there should be an opportunity for comment after each item. So it would be appropriate to open up the item to public comment after hearing from staff.
Thank you very much.
Okay, well, I'm going to make.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, do you wish to make a comment now or you want to wait?
That was mostly my process comment because I do have
Great.
comments for the items, so I'll make them at the right time then. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you for commenting. Anybody else, Madam Clerk?
No, that was the only request to speak.
All right, I'll close the public comment section. Next item.
Item 3, new business. 3.1, City of Santa Rosa, California preliminary annual program of services and budget fiscal year 2020-2021. Staff report by Administrative Services Director Eva Phelps.
Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, let me start my presentation. Okay, so I'm here to start give you the preliminary proposed budget for 2021. And I first wanted to set up the agenda if the city manager wanted to make any opening comments before I get started, because I will be doing the operating budget, and then Maria, the Public Works Director, will be giving you a presentation on the capital improvement program.
Thank you, Eva, and good afternoon, City Council, Mr. Mayor. This budget review is a compilation of the several budget workshops that we've had, including our capital improvement program compiled for the final budget. And much of it you have already seen, and we will be happy to field any questions you may have.
Thank you. Okay, let's get started. So this presentation is going to cover the citywide budget, operating budget for 2021. And like I mentioned before, the capital budget will come after that. And then we're proposing to bring the budget to the City Council on June 9th for full adoption. So the budget is comprised of the all city funds, the general fund, we have special revenue funds, GADs, the housing fund, capital improvement program, and other special purpose fund. It is consistent with the last May study session that we had. And it includes tier 1 service reductions that public services and parks and recreation had, and they will go over that in their department pieces, and also a drawdown from the general reserves, and we'll go over that later in the presentation. It does not include any funding for the infrastructure maintenance fund for capital projects. So sources that fund the budget, we are showing 112.4 million of revenue that are coming in. The remaining surplus that covers the full 127.2 million in expenditures are from prior year reserves. 47% is general purpose. The other 53% of the budget is restricted. From these funds that are all restricted, you can only use those for those purposes. The special, like the GAD special assessments, the special revenue funds for capital projects, the housing fund, debt service, and internal service funds. So here's just a chart showing you how the revenue is split up, showing general fund is the bulk of the revenue of 40, it makes up 46.7% of the total. The citywide expenditure budget is 127.2 million. That's, let me see, let me go to my notes. That is 15.4 million or 14% more than the 1920 adopted budget. It consists of an operating budget of 79.1 million. The special revenue is about 100,000. Debt service is 4.9 million. Capital projects, 31 million. Internal service funds, 12 million. The GAD is 800,000, but it's included in that operating budget. And the housing is 100,000. So the overall budget has increased by 15.4 million, and that's due basically, as you can see, capital projects of 11.9 is the bulk of the increase. And that's due to a lot of the projects that we have lined up for that we're using the COP that we did back in October. So we have a lot of projects in the queue for that. And then we general fund increased by 2.2, and some of the funds have decreased, like the internal service funds and special revenue funds. Like I said, some of the significant impacts is the capital projects. We have some inflationary increases due to utility cost, service contracts, and employee wage and benefits. So this is just a pie chart showing you the breakup of the percentages of the various funds, showing general fund makes up 39.5% of the expenditures. So let's go over the operating budget. The operating budget is the general fund, Dougherty Valley. We have 20 lighting and landscaping district funds. The stormwater fund, we have 2 GAD funds, and then some other special funds that make up the operating budget. So the operating budget revenue is 84.1 million. 62.4% is for general purpose. All the other percentages like the Dougherty Valley and GAD and stormwater and LNL, they're all restricted. The operating budget expenditures by department is 79.2 million. That's 2.3 million more than the previous adjusted budget 1920. Staffing levels, we're at 273 FTEs that have been authorized. We have no new positions included in this budget. We have unfunded one vacant IT specialist position. We've reallocated one office tech from the Administrative Services Department to the Community Development Department for the Permit Center that's coming to City Hall. And the staffing levels have not kept up with growing population. And this is just a chart kind of showing you the population back in 2011-12, we had 74,378. And now we're up to 83,118, but the level of staffing is only increased by just a few head counts. So going on to the general fund, revenue estimates, they're at 52.5 million. That's excluding the transfers, which is 200,000 or 0.5% below the 1920 revised budget.
I just want to make a comment about the last page. The population went down.
The population did go down based on the Department of Finance. So it did go down.
That's really curious, even though we added some homes.
Yes. So I don't know what the reason for that is.
Scott, what's more curious is when you go to 11-12 at 74,000, go back before they did the 10-year census, and we were 60. I mean, they missed it by 8 million or 8,000. So we'll find out, you know what I'm saying? We'll find out in a couple of months what the real census is.
Yes.
So the 2011 numbers are the census numbers or the finance department numbers?
The finance department. All the numbers you see are the finance department numbers.
But those 2011 numbers are very, very closely based on the census. The farther you get from the census, the further the model gets from reality.
Right. And so the city population, that number that we put in the budget is as of January that they put out.
I'm guessing that if there is a drop, in fact, school enrollments are down, right? So there may be less kids in our community than previously.
But between 11 and 2020, so many people have moved to San Ramon. It was also because real estate was historically low in around 2010, 2011 before it started picking up. So I don't know. It's
been going forever.
It's different than reality.
So the Department of Finance uses a calculation and it gets trued up, which will be trued up this year, as Councilmember Hudson was mentioning. The census is an actual count. So it is probably likely that that number will jump significantly once the census is tabulated.
Yeah.
So general fund revenue. This chart just shows you a side-by-side comparison of the proposed budget for this year and the budget for this year. And as you can see, some revenue is going down and others are staying pretty steady, like property taxes. So general fund expenditures are projected at 50.3 million. That's excluding the transfers out, which is 1.1 million more than the 1920 amended budget, or 3.7% higher. Some significant factors impacting the general fund expenditures are, like I mentioned, is utility costs, service contracts, employee wage and benefit costs. However, it's offset by some decreases from those tier 1 service level reduction. That came to about maybe about 200,000. Some realignment of department expenditures when we went through the whole process of reducing some of our budgets. And then we do also have additional employee contributions towards the pension. So this year will be, I will go up to 3%. So we're now going to be at the maximum 3% per the contracts. Expenditures by department, as you can see, the expenditures are projected.
Hey, Eva, excuse me, I'm sorry to interrupt, but can you clarify that the 3% is the employers for the pension?
Exactly. Yeah.
The employees already pay their full contribution, and the 3% is towards the employer's contribution.
That's true. So the employee portion, the employees have been paying that fully, and it's about 8 to 9%. And this is the employer portion, which is in addition to that. So they're now paying those two pieces of the pension costs. On the expenditures, we're showing, this is just a chart kind of showing you the difference in the budgets for this year and the proposed budget for each of the departments. General fund transfers, we have 8.5 million transfers in, and mainly that large number we usually don't have, but we're moving the reserves that we have in the COP 11 back into the general fund where it belongs, so it'll be easier to keep up with or just be able to be transparent and show it a little bit better. And then the transfers out is Dougherty Valley. We have the debt service payment portion because we put some in the fund at mid-year. So this will be to true up any additional debt service payment that we have that's due for 2021. And then we have some other transfers to fund Dougherty Regional Fire Authority and the Street Smart. So the net of the transfers in and out is 5.2 million.
Dave.
Yeah. How much more do we have on DERFA? I mean, I was a young whipper, I think, when we got out of that.
But we continue to pay retirements for anyone that's still alive and medical. So until they—
That's the tactful way I was trying to put it. There is somebody still alive from DERFA?
Yeah, there's a few.
Wow. Thank you.
Okay, this is just a chart showing you the revenue and expenditures and the net transfer, comparing it to 1920. Onto Dougherty Valley Fund, we track the service cost to the CSA area. Expenditures are 21.7 million. That's up 500 from the revised budget for 1920. It includes a $100,000 contribution to capital projects. Sources that fund the CSA, we have the CSA assessments, their property tax, and the funding, the transfer in from the general fund.
Ava, when we finally annex that last section of Dougherty Valley, I know there'll still be a CSA M129, but will we continue to track the Dougherty Valley Fund like we do today once we do that final annexation?
We'll probably still have to track it. We now would go back to the county and try to renegotiate how we receive our funding. So that's going to be something once everything's annexed in that we'd have to go back to the county and renegotiate with them how we receive our revenue. Because right now we have to bill them after the year is over. So hopefully we can start getting the revenue at the same time we get all our other property tax monies.
Right, because the distribution completely changes as you annex. And so once we fully annex, we should be able to they should just be able to send us the money along with the rest of our property tax.
Yeah, we're hopeful that they
okay.
I might just jump in there as well. And so the settlement agreement that happened, as you know, 20 years ago or however long it was, really did not have a provision to end the agreement. And so it does have a provision, literally just a couple lines in there, that says that the county and the city can renegotiate on how they exchange these calculations and maybe make it easier. But as far as completely, eliminating that process, it's unlikely, because the M29 is a county service area and is not a city, similar to a community facilities district. It's not. So unless there's a way we can create a process that moves that entire thing into a community facilities district or something of that nature, we'll have to have some sort of mechanism continually for the county and the city to reconcile these revenues.
Thanks.
And does that expire in another 10 years or?
It doesn't expire.
It doesn't?
No.
I thought everybody in Dougherty Valley was waiting for like 30 years.
Oh, that's the
40.
Ruse. That's different.
Melrose. So, okay, so that's not the
That's
same.
the people who live in the Windermere section, right?
Yeah, yeah.
They have a Melrose that expires at some future date.
Yeah, like. 10
I'll
more.
wait. Don't go away. Please
Dave.
go back to that CSA if you would. One of the things that has always bothered me is we have missed out on 2 or 3 East Bay Regional Park District bonds. The last one that people remember, what was it, WW, 25% of the measure, $500 million was going to the city. Well, what you didn't hear was that 5% was going to administration, and it was taken from the 25%. $1 million went to the Oakland Zoo, but there were 3 CSAs that also got money. So we were down to about 18%. And when I tried to get our CSA, M29, their fair share, we had to go back to the county. Well, nobody in the county was interested. So somehow, some way, whenever East Bay Regional Park District goes up for a bond measure, we need to get included, because they went out of their way to exclude Dougherty Valley from being in their open space. But these people are paying into an East Bay Regional Park District bond, and there should be a mechanism to get the money back. Long-winded for, you got your work cut out for you, Joe, because they'll listen to every word you say.
Okay, the other new infrastructure that is coming online in 2021 in Dougherty Valley is 9.81 acres of landscape, 3.23 street miles of roadways and sidewalks, 162 street lights, 3.8 miles of trails. So we'll be taking on that. Equipment replacement, we are planning to replace $700,000 worth of vehicle and equipment and $400,000 worth of computer equipment. And at the end of the fiscal year, we'll have $3.7 million of reserves in the vehicle and IT replacement fund. The infrastructure maintenance fund, 1.2 million is, we're going to begin the year in that fund. Capital projects, we're showing a use of 600,000. And we're going to end the year at 600,000. We also have no, and I mentioned that at the beginning of the presentation, no general fund contribution to the infrastructure maintenance fund. Retiree healthcare funding, we're collecting 100,000, $1 million in the budget for retiree benefits. We're putting, we have a placeholder for 300,000 payment to the OPEB trust. We're estimating that the trust will have 31 million in the trust by end of this fiscal year. It's in the liability as of the April actuary study that we presented to you. The liability is at 32.7. So there's a little gap. We're 95% funded. And we're going to try to stay within the 95 or even 100% funded if we can. However, we are allowed to use those funds in the trust to reimburse ourselves for any retiree health. Pension costs. The PERS pension, the unfunded liability, is at 36.1 million as of the June 2018 actuary. That's 7.7 million more than it was previously. We have implemented several strategies to address the rising pension. As you know, the second tier benefit for classics that we did back in July of 2012, we created the pension trust to pre-fund obligations, and the employees are paying the full cost of the employee portion that I mentioned, and they're now going to be paying 3% of the employer portion. We have pension obligation bonds. The debt service payment for next year is 1.4 million. The balance at the end of next fiscal year, the principal balance will be 14.6 million. The pension trust currently, as of April, our last statement, we have a balance of 2.7 million. Reserves, general fund reserves. This page I actually changed since this was distributed to everyone, and I did send it to the clerk. after the fact. So you guys will get an updated copy. But where I changed is in red. The proposed amendment to the general fund reserve policy requires contingency reserves to be maintained at 36% of estimated general fund expenditures, plus the annual Dougherty Valley transfer that the general fund contributes to Dougherty Valley. So that's the piece I needed to include. So 17.4 million would satisfy that 36% contingency. And as you can see in the chart, at the end of the fiscal year 2021, we'll have 18.8 million in reserves. And I'm showing you in the chart too how we're moving. We started out at 20.4. We're going to use 1.6 in reserves. We're moving the 7.4 million that's in the bond fund back into general fund. So the 18.8 is the total reserves for the year.
So Eva, what does that represent as a percentage, the 18.8?
That's about, I think it's, I want to say it was 40%, right at 40%.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm. Okay, this section, we're going to go by department to have each department kind of highlight some of their major action plan items that they're undertaking for next year. So we'll first start with general government. Under city council, I'm going to have Stephen pop on and kind of go over the city council goals, and then the city manager and also economic development.
All right, thank you, Eva. So the first goal under the city council or priority is to maintain a safe and secure environment. And the three goals under that priority are enhanced crime prevention, education activities, improve bicycle safety throughout the community by continued implementation of the bike master plan, and continue the implementation of the ITS. The next priority is maintain a secure financial base, and the goals under that priority are efficiently annex and integrate the last part of Dougherty Valley, streamline the Dougherty Valley oversight process, and support the economic development element of the city's general plan through the implementation of the economic development strategy plan. The next priority, maintain staffing to provide city services. The three goals: ensure sufficient staffing needs in order to maintain service levels to the community, complete the integration of the new ERP system into citywide operations, and continue to work on a succession plan that captures institutional knowledge from long-term city employees who retire at during the fiscal year. The next priority is build and maintain quality facilities and infrastructure. And we have 4 goals under this priority. The first is to support the construction of the Iron Horse Trail overcrossing by completing the design phase, promote deeper partnerships with transit agencies to enhance operations, continue the development of a joint public safety building with the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District, and adopt, plan, and implement the Parks, Open Space, and Trails Master Plan. The next priority is enhance engagement and communications with residents and business community. And the 4 goals under this priority are to implement the Parks, Open Space, and Trails Master Plan, enhance the content and the accessibility of information on the city website, explore technology improvements that will broaden accessibility to city council meetings, and explore city-sponsored activities and create gathering spaces to increase a stronger sense of community. And I believe it's the final priority, focus on land use planning for housing, jobs, and open space. The 4 goals there are to prioritize housing growth in the city core while preserving existing retail, commercial, and open space, preserve permanent open space along the city boundaries through partnerships with other agencies, promote walkability with and to local shopping centers, and develop a walking district in San Ramon that connects City Hall, Central Park, the main library, and the new city center. For the city manager's department, we have 4 goals to execute a joint public safety building plan with the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District, continue to work on the succession plan that captures the institutional knowledge from long-term employees who will retire during the fiscal year, continue to work with the Open Space Advisory Committee to promote the value and importance of preserving open space in the community, and continue to implement the citywide communications plan as adopted by the council. And finally, under economic development will support the implementation of the economic alternative report and the economic element of the general plan, support the implementation of the economic development strategic plan, work with Discover San Ramon to increase hotel stays in the city, and continue to work with real estate partners in San Ramon to promote business growth and retail development in the community.
Thank you, Stephen. Next up, we have the City Attorney's Office.
Good afternoon. Just keeping it short, we are focusing this year on continuing to provide timely legal advice and working to enhance efficiency and in so doing, for example, bringing a program to for public use to access the municipal code and the zoning code and the general plan, and have links to calculators and various functions to reduce staff time in answering questions and queries. Other than that, again, we'll be focusing strictly on efficiency and quick turnaround on legal questions. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk.
Good afternoon. We will be using ENCODE for the municipal code update, which is going to be a new program for online publishing for the municipal code. Conduct 2020 municipal election in November. Coordinate the office move. Submit all FPPC filings electronically. Coordinate Government 101 class spring 2021. And prepare and issue the fiscal year 2021-22 fee resolution.
Thank you, City Clerk. So under general government, that incorporates all those departments. Their total department budget is 2.9 million. That increased 229,000 from the previous year, or 8.7%, and mainly due to the general election costs, increase in salary and benefits, and all positions being fully funded.
So did the general election cost go up? Or it's because it's a year of the election?
Yes.
Right. If we don't have an election, we don't have to pay anything.
Yeah, no, I was wondering, like, is it more expensive or cheaper? I don't know what the impact of districts or any of that has been on us implementing the election.
I'll try and help. The answer is yes. It always goes up.
Yes.
It only went down when we went from odd year to even year.
Yes.
We won't get into that. No, it goes up.
Okay, so moving on to the Administrative Services Department. And before I go any further, each department, their full major action plan is in the actual budget document. And at the end of my presentation, if you have any questions that you want to go over, that's in the actual document, we can go over it at that time, but they have a full list. So this is just some highlights of some of the major action plan items that the departments are undertaking. So under administrative services, we will be preparing and issuing a request for proposal for investment advisory services. We'll assist in the streamlining of the Dougherty Valley reimbursement process. IT will be expanding staff security awareness test and training to reduce exposure to malware through email phishing and social engineering. We're planning and designing of the network changes and enhancements to support the plan changes at City Hall and at the police department. And phase 2 of the ERP implementation, moving to do electronic personnel action forms and performance evaluation reviews through the Munis system. The admin department's budget is 4.7 million. That's a increase of only $6,800, and that's mainly because we unfunded the one IT specialist and we moved one position out of admin services and moved into community development for the City Hall Permit Center.
The spirit of Greg Rogers lives on, Eva. A 0.5% increase.
Okay, we have community development, Debbie Chamberlain.
Good afternoon, Mayor and members of the council. So community developments broke up into two divisions, planning and building safety. And so beginning with planning services, we will facilitate the Fall Planning Academy. We will continue to work to renegotiate the Bishop Ranch Tax Exchange Agreement between the city and county for the City Walk Master Plan area and the North Community Ramon Specific Plan area. We'll support the development of the new City Hall Permit Center, including planning, the planning counter and the customer service functions. And we will be undertaking an RFP for the update to the housing element as required by state law. We are going to actually be looking at an early action planning grant to help defray the cost of about $300,000 towards that endeavor. We will continue to work to complete the Crow Canyon Plan update, the City Walk Master Plan, and the associated environmental review and the development entitlements for the City Walk Hotel. And as you are aware, we are in the final throes of the final Dougherty Valley annexation. And for building and safety, we are continuing with our InterGov development and permit tracking system, hoping to come online later this summer, which will help us to facilitate and enhance our plan tracking and a streamline our inspection process with mobile technology. We will inspect the two major approved development projects, the Preserve and the Aspenwood multifamily project. If other projects are approved in the near future, we will also be inspecting those. And as we always do, we are proactive in monitoring our commercial properties consistent with the nuisance and zoning regulations. And we work with those owners to ensure that they do keep those properties maintained well, the paving, the landscaping, the awnings, and as such. And our department budget is just over $4 million. As you see, we do have a bit of an increase of $250,000. So what Eva lost, we gained, I would like to say, since we're absorbing the new office tech position from admin services, which will sit as the greeter at the new permit center in City Hall. And also there are a number of contracts that are citywide contracts that will be coming with him also. And then we will continue to unfund our assistant planner position. With that, we can take any questions at the end.
Okay. Police services. Is the chief on?
So that will be me because the chief is very busy, occupied elsewhere for an event tomorrow. So the major action plan for police services will be installing the camera network throughout the city as approved earlier by council, develop regional partnerships with our neighboring police agencies, evaluate traffic concerns, and work closely with other city staff to help facilitate traffic flow in areas of new development, continue to enhance and develop the use of community volunteers, and further develop future and current leaders as anticipated retirements in the police department occur throughout the year and the coming years. And also continue to seek out and hire quality applicants and continue to enhance the police department's social media outreach and provide information sharing opportunities to educate the communities.
I can go over this piece.
Okay.
So their department budget that includes the general fund in Dougherty Valley is 25.1 million, an increase of 1.6 million or 6.7%. Some of the increases is due to the increase in the animal control county control contract, increase in some fleet maintenance services and repairs. They'll enter into a 50-50 cost sharing agreement with the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District to cover the police dispatch costs, increases in salary and benefits, and all positions within their department are fully funded.
Question on
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, Phil.
Go ahead.
All right, on the 50-50 with the San Ramon Valley Fire Protection District dispatch costs, we had a fixed ratio for the first 5 years, as I recall, and then there was going to be a true up to fix any deficit on one side or the other. and then we're going to go 50-50. So what is that? Can you go through those 3 steps from what we were paying to the true up to the new financing arrangement?
Well, the true up has not occurred yet, and we will be calculating that. We are negotiating that point with the fire district and how to pay that, either via a yearly through the course of the contract or a lump sum. We haven't come to a decision on how we will be paying that in the future. The actual 50-50 was a ramp up over 5 years. This in year 5, I believe it was 5 years in year 5, which is this coming year. It goes to just a straight 50-50 cost sharing.
Okay, do you know how that compares with what we were paying?
I don't have that with me. No, I'd have to find out the calculation of what contract cities pay or what we were paying in the past. It's been 5 years since we've actually contracted with the Contra Costa County Sheriff's Office. So we would have to.
I'm not interested in what we were paying Contra Costa. No, I was just interested in what is the 50-50 for this year for police dispatch? What is that number?
I don't have that with me, but we'd be happy to provide that with you.
Thanks.
Okay.
Phil had a question, I know.
Oh, you have a
Are
question?
you more, no, I'm fine. Thank you.
Next up is Public Works. Maria Ferner.
Good afternoon, everyone. So starting with the Engineering Services Division, we'll be completing the conversion of the Ring Rock Fountain at San Ramon Community Center to be completed late in the fall this year. We'll be implementing the automated traffic signal performance measures, the ATS-PM system. There are 2 rectangular rapid flashing beacon crosswalks that we will be installing. One on San Ramon Valley Boulevard at Safeway, and then the other one is at North Monarch at Japonica. We have several roadway projects. We have the pavement management 2020 and 2021 for about $6 million. We have our Crow Canyon Road widening project phase 1. Most of that will be design and starting the utility relocation. And then we have the El Costa Boulevard pavement rehabilitation project from Veracruz to Olympia Fields. The Bollinger Canyon Road Iron Horse Trail bicycle and pedestrian overcrossing project, it will be fully under design with design completion anticipated to be January of 2022. We're overseeing the Faria Park construction anticipated to start early this summer. And we'll be reinstating the door-to-door household hazardous waste collection program, as well as hold a 2-day recycling drop-off event.
Excellent. I'm glad we're doing the household hazardous waste again. That was a big hole in our program for a couple of years.
We've been getting a lot of calls on that, asking when it'll start up again.
Good, thank you.
So for the Public Services Division, under the Landscape and Lighting District, there are a couple of public outreach efforts that we will be doing for Vista San Ramon and West Branch in anticipation of future balloting in the next couple of years. We'll continue to implement the Dougherty Valley tree and planting strip management, as well as complete the annual work plan for last fiscal year as well as this fiscal year. For Athens Downs, we'll be replacing the backstop on baseball field number 3. We'll continue to implement water management strategies, as well as proactively respond to water usage restrictions and conditions. We'll be enhancing and replacing outdated traffic signal components, as well as repainting and the peeling and discolored signal poles, and continue to replace overhead illuminated street light sign panels with green diamond grade reflective sheeting signs.
Bill, you raised your hand.
Just had a question about the automated traffic control, whatever that 5-letter acronym was. Is that the extending it up Bollinger and Crow Canyon? So there's more of these smart intersections, or is that something else?
No, that is it. So it's focusing
Okay.
on the Bollinger corridor and then the Crow Canyon corridor. Yes, that's the same.
How far down Bollinger, how far east down Bollinger is it going, Maria? Do you recall?
Dougherty North, I believe.
Okay, thanks. Also, it just, do you folks notice how well maintained Athens Downs is? It's amazing. I mean, it's just.
Junket.
Beautiful. Keep the users away.
Okay, for the Transportation Services Division, we'll be assuming the administrative role for the Tri-Valley Transportation Council and the Technical Advisory Committee starting July 1st of this year, and that'll be for 2 years. We'll be implementing the components of the Iron Horse Trail Active Transportation Corridor Study. For the 511 Contra Costa, we'll be implementing a number of program recommendations from the strategic plan. We'll facilitate the TVTC Nexus study, and we'll be working with agencies and the Nexus study consultant team. We'll continue to participate in the innovative I-680 Technical Advisory Committee, and we'll be updating the residential traffic calming program and toolkit, which is approximately 12 years old.
I'm really glad to see we're updating that because it really was out of date. Most of the techniques are still valid, but the document really looks dated because of the references inside it. And so people kind of discount something that looks that old.
We agree.
For the Nexus study, how are we facilitating that? Are we?
I will be the chair of the TVTC next year.
Okay.
And the Nexus study, we've hired a contractor, Kimley Horn, Dave's friend. Kimley Horn will be the contractor for the Nexus study. It takes all of the Tri-Valley projects and then looks at Tri-Valley growth. And then we look at how those projects are affected by that growth. And then we develop a fee for all the growth, and it helps pay for some of those projects.
Thanks.
A big portion of Public Works' activity for next fiscal year will be the management of the certificate of participation projects. And I'll be going over a number of these in more detail in the CIP presentation. But just quickly listed here, we have our bike boulevard on Montevideo Drive, bike lane buffers on Dougherty Road. We have our intelligent transportation system upgrades for the installation of fiber optics, overseeing the City Hall reconfiguration project, complete the San Ramon Community Center renovation. Really, that is more focused on the exterior amenities since the interior is essentially finished. We're going to start the renovation of the San Ramon Olympic Pool, Aquatic Park building, and replastering of the pools. And then we will begin the renovation of the Dougherty Station Community Center as well as the Dougherty Station Library. The department's budget, the total department budget is $34.5 million, of which $27.1 million is made up of general fund and Dougherty Valley Fund. We increased it by about 2.3% or $600,000. We have a number of decreases to try to offset our salary and benefit increases, which are listed here. We did pursue the encroachment permit revenue increase of $30,000 applied to our inspection fees. And I think that's probably the most I'll highlight. And then really the increase is mostly related to salaries and benefits in the amount of $1.2 million.
So if I had a question about the renovation of Dougherty Valley, the senior center, I understand, and the community center were older buildings, and they didn't cost as much as the Dougherty Valley one is anticipated to cost us. And even though it's a much newer building, what is the reason for that?
There is $1 million that's in there right now for a possible parking lot improvement. And so if that is not needed, which we're still in the beginning discussions of that, then the cost is really more like 1.5 million. So only 1.5 million is really associated with the renovations. Right now, that is just an estimate based on square footage. But when we go through the building and determine what renovations are needed, then we'll adjust the cost accordingly.
Okay.
So there are two geologic hazard abatement districts. We have the Dougherty Valley GAD as well as the Northwest San Ramon GAD. There is no activity yet in the Northwest San Ramon GAD, as Robin has provided to the GAD board. But for the Dougherty Valley GAD, we'll be completing the stabilization of the landslide near Cami Court, complete the grading of fill, placement and mitigation area near Longleaf Circle that's tied to the landslide repair at Cami Court. We'll be undertaking repairs on the West Alamo Creek Trail. We'll complete the reserve fund studies and the engineer's reports for the two GADs and set the assessments for 21-22. We'll complete all the routine monitoring and maintenance and accept any open space in the Dougherty Valley for ownership.
Thank you, Maria. Okay, now we have Parks and Community Services, Kathy Hyman.
Good afternoon, Mayor, City Council. It's my pleasure to talk about what we're planning to do for this next year. So some of the major action plans that the department is going to undertake are reorganizing the work of the departments to better align with the concepts and ideas that are part of the Parks, Trails, Open Space and Recreation Master Plan. We're looking to develop and implement a trail cleanup day program by partnering with Sports Basement to lead participants in providing some trail maintenance for us. We're developing a new team leadership and volunteerism program to help develop leadership skills, provide some volunteer hours, and showcase opportunities for future employment with the city to our young teenagers. We want to enhance our scholarship program to include business and nonprofit sponsorship opportunities to increase the availability of funds for residents that request financial assistance. We do offer scholarships now. We just want to expand on that and be able to offer them for all of our programs by partnering with business community. There we go. We're planning to partner with local fitness instructors and businesses to expand our free outdoor physical fitness classes and walking programs in the parks. We piloted those last summer. They were very successful. So we were hoping to expand them this summer. We may have to delay a little bit, but hopefully since they're outside, we'll be able to offer them at some point. We want to enhance our mobile integration and update of the Guide by Cell tour from a call-in tour that we currently have at Forest Home Farms, where you call your cell and you can hear a tour, to a little more modern of an app situation, so that people, when they come to the farm, can use an app to access information on all the historic elements. And finally, we'd like to research and implement opportunities to increase our outdoor programming in the open space through led mountain bike excursions, trail runs, and more family events that really focus on nature, which is in part with the master plan goals and objectives that we've already developed.
I had a quick question around the teen volunteerism. Is that going to be just throughout the year, or are you thinking of internships as well?
It wasn't pointed directly at internships, but what we're working with is how to create a program, much like we have our leadership programs right now that feed our summer camps, but to make it more of a year-round experience and to implement more leadership training into it. So not quite an internship, but much more than we have in our current volunteer program. So our department budget is 7.8 million, which is actually a decrease of 24,000. That's primarily due to some of the reductions that we made in order to deal with the COVID-19 situation. We're going to continue to unfund our division manager position, 1 recreation supervisor, 1 recreation coordinator, and 1 office specialist, and 2 office technicians. We have the list of reductions, which we have gone over at a previous meeting. So I'm happy to go back over those if you want to, but they're primarily reducing summer concerts, reducing presenting series, reducing those programs that would would likely have been reduced anyway because of the need for social distancing. We have also included in our budget this year our minimum wage increase and our new internal relationship analysis pay rates for temporary staffing. Again, because of the reduction in temporary staffing, we were able to absorb those funds within the existing budget, but it does bear mentioning because that was a large increase for our state minimum wage. The other big changes that you would actually see in our budget would be the increase for our Civic Rec contract. And Civic Rec is the software that we use to take all our registration and our facility rentals. That's $32,000. And then we also had an increase, a modest increase for the county library contract of $4,000. And so a couple of other changes to our budget were we actually reallocated the banner and wreath installations, which used to sit in the Public Works Department. That came over to Parks and Community Services. So that was an additional $15,000 that we absorbed. We have an increase in salary and benefit costs of almost $300,000 that is absorbed into our budget. So that brings our general fund subsidy to $3.2 million. Our revenues from service charges, contributions, rentals, user fees come in at about $4.5 million, which funds 58.5% of the department's total expenditures. So all in all, we are costing less this year. Do you have any questions?
No questions. Okay. So the next steps would be we're proposing to come back to the council June 9th for adoption of the budget. The adoption resolution will include the appropriations for 2021, the approval of the appropriations limit as required by law, and carryover unspent funds from capital projects. So just looking at future outlook, the economy is uncertain due to COVID-19. We will still be looking at our revenues and expenditures as we move along. We are still seeing rising costs of public pensions. So we will be still looking at that. And with the interest rates dropping, it will have a huge effect on our pensions and also any unfunded projects and rising costs of infrastructure maintenance. So that's the end of my presentation. And I wanted to know if you have any questions or comments in the budget document itself. I can take those questions now.
What I'd like to do, Eva, if I could, is open up for public comment, and then we can go to questions from council members, okay?
Sounds good.
Madam Clerk.
For those that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand button at this time. And we do have one request to speak from Luz Gomez.
And as a follow-up, we ask that folks keep their comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. This is Luz Gomez again, longtime resident of San Ramon. So a couple of questions, a couple of comments about overall the budget for the public's consumption. I would recommend that we try to spell acronyms as much as possible. And I do have a couple of suggested acronym spellings that I would be happy to send via email afterwards. A couple of other global comments would be, for example, on page 37, when we're describing expenditures by fund, we list Dougherty Valley without any further expenditure of what the Dougherty Valley fund is. So I would recommend just a couple more words to try to describe what that means so that the average reader could comprehend it. Regarding the Dougherty Valley CSA and the fact that it's going to need a community facility district in the future, if something like that, I would encourage resident engagement before the formation of such a district. Regarding vehicle equipment replacement, you mentioned 0.7 million for new vehicles. I would recommend and encourage the city to consider replacing current vehicles as much as possible with electric vehicles. Regarding infrastructure maintenance, I remember seeing somewhere in there that there was going to be some HVAC upgrades. I would encourage the city to consider using heat pumps whenever you're going to be replacing or upgrading HVACs. Regarding community development, any chance that the city could provide a model policy that HOAs could adopt to address the new ADU state law, the accessory dwelling unit state law. I think local HOAs could use some guidance on that. Regarding police services, and this one is really important, I know that you will be recruiting applicants. I would encourage you to do what you can to increase a diverse applicant pool. I would also encourage you to increase community policing and have more of our friendly policemen out on bikes, perhaps in the community. And also, if race relation courses and or unconscious bias training are not already mandatory, please make sure that you allocate funding specific for this training and make that line item publicly visible so the community knows that that is the case. Regarding public works, for road construction, I just have a curiosity whether the city knows about low albedo pavement. It's something that either is already here or is coming.
I think we are.
You are? Okay, and this is to decrease the urban heat island effect. And then regarding public works, you know, I noticed that you're planning to decrease the household hazardous waste event, and this seems a little bit misguided because I think residents come to rely on an easier way to get rid of their household waste than having to go all the way to Martinez. Regarding public parks and community services, I love the trail cleanup idea, and I love the scholarship expansion idea. I would encourage the community services, Kathy, to seek to improve the selection of classes that might touch on multiculturalism and unconscious bias. And I'm very sad that there are some reductions in the Parks and Community Services budget because you guys do such a good job, and the city really needs as much of your services as you can possibly provide. So I think that is all of my comments, and thank you very much for your attention to them.
That was the only request to speak on that item.
Great. I will close the public comment on this. Questions from council members?
So one of the things which obviously we've talked about this budget through the year, but what has changed in the COVID is a lot of services have had to go online. And I don't know, Joe, how you're thinking about, if this was to happen again in 6 months, or, we were to suddenly forced to go online, how are we looking at our technology investments pretty much to make sure that we are able to provide as many of our services online as possible, more than we were able to. I know you guys really did an amazing job of bringing everybody up and having our meetings and everything, but it was a bit of a challenge in the beginning. And so I think each department, if they could have a plan of, if this was either to continue or, come October, we were again under, more orders of shelter in place, how are we continuing to run city services and provide those services via, coming online. So that was one thing I wanted to bring up. The other was, obviously, we've seen a tremendous increase in people biking now. I was over at the sports basement and they were just out of bikes. They're like, we've just been, running out of bikes and things like that. So is there a way to, I know we've got a phased approach to our bike plan, but is there a way that we can prioritize some of that phased approach and, kind of have some of those bike plan improvements now versus spreading them out over the next few years? So those were my comments.
So just Mayor, would you like a response on that, or pardon me?
Go ahead.
So if you remember in the goal setting, we also gave you a technology, I believe it was our goal setting. It's been a few months ago. We talked about some of the technology upgrades that the city's been doing. And in the last couple of years, we've taken significant steps to bringing our muni codes online, bringing community development online, electronic plan check, electronic building inspections, and a new ERP. So we do have, and now these remote. So yes, there was some challenges initially going to kind of this remote council meeting scenario, because that's something we've never done. But the city is committed to continuing to upgrade the technology that we have. And we had very little problem, which I was very impressed with our staff being able to shift very quickly when COVID-19 hit. And so the reality is, if it comes back in the winter, we've already made the necessary adjustments and can very, very easily, like a flip of a switch, transfer back over to a remote work scenario if necessary. We're also exploring ways to continue remote work and other strategies. So I'm confident we will continue that path as you requested. And the bike master plan is very important. But if you remember, I believe that was in the $40 million category, the whole thing roughly. So we've prioritized the bike master plan, and we certainly, as the budget allows, can explore with the finance committee and the council in the future additions to upping the phases of some of that master plan to address bikes. That will just depend on the state of the budget, the state of revenue, and sales tax and things that are we're having trouble with in the city due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, and then I felt like we'd already pre-planned some of these goals, because if the focus on, people walkability and bikeability and all of that, certainly is well positioned. So thank you.
Yeah.
Other questions? I'm not seeing any hands up.
Mayor, I'm sorry, jump in one more time.
Please.
Councilmember Perkins had asked about the dispatch costs. The dispatch costs for last year, or this current year, was 1.4 million, and the 50-50 cost share is 2 million for this coming year.
Thank you, Joe.
You bet.
Eva, I don't see any more questions. You got sufficient feedback?
Thanks for all the great work. Some weird times to go through, and kind of adjusted on the fly. So well done by everyone. Thank you.
You did a fabulous job to bring it in like you did. It's I'm amazed, and hopefully we can get through the year with the projections you guys have, that they're good.
Thank you.
Thank you. I apologize. My internet is fading a little bit. You guys froze for about a minute, so I apologize.
So the next part of the presentation would be the capital improvement program by Maria.
And Maria, I'll be right back.
Somebody's playing video games at his house.
When he comes back, say, "This concludes my report."
He's probably overseeing all those Athens Downs upgrades. No?
You are so bad.
Maria, by the way, you look really nice.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know, when was the last time I dressed up? It's nice to see that you dressed up.
I'm dressed up.
Oh, yeah.
By your standards, Dave. Yeah, I'm here in a t-shirt. I can't point any fingers.
I look forward to the council meetings to at least put on something other than my gym clothes. Workout.
Sweatpants? Really?
You, I think Bill expected you to
Should I
get
keep?
going. Right? Yeah, he was
Okay.
fly the plane.
All right, let's go then.
Sabina's taken over in his absence, right?
Right.
Okay.
No. Right now, Joe's in charge of everything.
I'm not
Okay.
sure what the mayor was doing, whether he's having internet problems or not, but we will go
Yeah.
ahead and defer to the vice mayor and
No.
move. Oh, he's here. I heard something.
It's like, don't do
I
that.
thought I had to go for a
Great
second.
job, Sabina.
Oh, okay. The mayor's back.
Comfort break.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Okay. This half of the presentation is on the CIP. So I'll be going over the review process, new CIPs being introduced for fiscal year 2021. I'll go over the capital budget for next year, as well as the 5-year CIP. I'll summarize the revisions, and then I will highlight projects for fiscal year 2021. I'll do a brief update on the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund, talk about the Dougherty Valley CSA funded CIPs, and then the next steps. So we've completed most of the review processes, going to the Infrastructure Committee for the 5-year pavement management plan, as well as the Dougherty Valley trees. Went to the Finance Committee on May 11th, presented the unfunded CIP projects at the Council Budget Workshop on May 12th. Park Commission reviewed the Parks and Facilities portion of the CIP, and the Transportation Advisory Committee reviewed the circulation and signals. And so today we are reviewing the full budget, and it is going to the Planning Commission tonight for approval for general plan conformance, with the anticipation of approval for June 9th by the council. This is just a cheat sheet for the.
Rhea, I'm not seeing the slides change.
Oh, you're not?
No.
Oh.
The focus is on the very first one still.
Oh. Is it moving now?
No.
Try stopping your screen share and restarting it.
Can you go to a different presentation mode that shows the?
Let's see.
There we go.
That works.
It's on page 4 or slide 4?
New numbering system?
Yeah,
That's
number, but
4.
Yep, it is.
Good.
numbering system.
Okay.
Yep, you can see the number 4 on the bottom.
Okay, I apologize. Okay, so this sheet shows the numbering system. We implemented a new numbering system last year with the changeover to Munis. So just wanted to give a reference in case you needed to take a look at that. But we have 4 new CIP projects that were being introduced for the 5-year CIP. And the first one is the Dougherty Station Community Center and Library renovations. The category is facilities for $2.5 million. It's funded by the 2019 COP debt financing. For 2021, we are allocating $500,000 for the design, with construction looking at 21-22. Although the building is newer of the most, a number of them are have amenities that are past its useful life. So that is why this is being programmed at this time. The Local Roadway Safety Plan, LRSP, is a new project in the circulation category for $80,000. We did receive a grant for $72,000, and we'll be working on this in 2021. So this plan is to systematically identify and analyze safety and operational concerns and recommend improvements and actions on local roads. By preparing this plan, we will be able to, that will help give us some future grant funding for traffic related projects. Pavement Management 2025 is being added in the 5th year for $4.6 million, funded by gas tax and Measure J, as well as a refuse vehicle impact fee. Will provide rehabilitation of roads as identified in the 5-year pavement repair plan that was presented to the Infrastructure Committee. The San Ramon Olympic Pool and Aquatic Park renovation, that is funded by the COP debt financing. We have already an allocation of $620,000 at mid-year, so we could start all of the design work and prep work in anticipation of the summer work, which is replastering the children's pool as well as replacing the children's play pool equipment. We'll also be replastering the 50-meter as well as renovating the building, doing some ADA compliance upgrades, replacing a slide, and installing a fence around the lap pool. So that project, the replaster, actually is going to go out to bid starting probably the end of this week, and anticipating construction to start in July. So looking at the capital budget for 2021, there are a total of 67 projects. Some of them are new, some of them are programmed for that particular fiscal year, and some are a carryover from the previous year. But the new total appropriations is $30.78 million, and the appropriations have increased due to the COP funding. This slide shows the expenditures by category. And there are a total of 9 categories in the CIP. And then when you look at it graphically, it shows that circulation has the most funding allocation of $21.23 million, and that's made up of pavement management, Bollinger Iron Horse Trail overcrossing, Crow Canyon Road widening, and El Costa rehabilitation projects. This slide shows the expenditures by funding source. There are a total of 14 various funding sources in the CIP. We did add the COP fund, so that is new to this list. Looking at those numbers graphically, it shows the COP funding at $13.87 million, followed by the alternative funding of $7.6 million. And I'll go over a couple of these funding allocations or funding sources in more detail. So here's the alternative funding. There's a total of $7.263 million that is being allocated in fiscal year 2021. The 5-year CIP actually has 30 alternative funding sources. So there are a lot of various funding sources that contribute to this CIP. But for this coming fiscal year, we have the OBEG 2 grant for the Bollinger Canyon Road overcrossing. The Historic Foundation is contributing for the Forest Home Farms. San Ramon Valley Unified School District will be paying their share of the irrigation booster pump at one of the school parks. We have the HSIP grant for our local roadway safety plan. The marquee installation at Transit Center is being paid for by the transit sales revenues. We have the middle school teen center portables being paid for by the child care funds. Open space preservation is being paid for by the developer. The $1.5 million for pavement management is coming from the refuse vehicle impact fee. We do have a grant, a TDA grant, that is being applied to our pedestrian enhancement devices for $55,000. And then the rec program and facilities equipment replacement is being paid for out of the cultural growth and equipment replacement. Here's a list of the 2019 COP funded projects for $13.8 million. I think we probably have gone over most of these. I have an asterisk by the City Hall reconfiguration project because at the Finance Committee, we had thought we were going to be awarding that project in the 1920 fiscal year. But the project will now be awarded July 14th. So it's the $3 million has moved to 2021. One of the financing alternatives that we are looking at is the TRIP fund financing, stands for Total Road Improvement Program. Staff is exploring this funding source, which borrows from the Return to Source Measure J funds. It's currently being evaluated to finance $8.2 million in total. 4.2 million would go towards the Bollinger Canyon Road pedestrian overcrossing, and that will help with the cash flow to help accelerate the project. There's a fine balance of the funding coming in, when we want the design to be completed, when we want construction to be completed. And so by having this 4.2 million, we can stay on schedule and keep it moving. The remaining 4 million would go for preventative maintenance for paving projects. So this proposal reduces funds for pavement management. However, it does give us upfront money that we can address worst case streets and put funding at the front end. We are coordinating heavily with CCTA to make sure that this does not impact any of our funding programs, especially particularly for the Bollinger Canyon Road pedestrian overcrossing. So they will be part of the approval process. So we are in the midst of reviewing this, and that will go to the Finance Committee when we get further along in this process. Okay, moving on to the 5-year CIP. There are a total of 131 city projects. The 5-year total is 89.7 million. This slide shows the expenditures by each fiscal year for a total of the 89.7. Looking at the expenditures by category, circulation again makes up most of the expenditures at 55 million. This includes the Bollinger Iron Horse Trail overcrossing, pavement management, Crow Canyon widening, and bicycle network improvements. Then we have in the signals category, the ITS master plan for 13.94 million. Much of that is unfunded. And then we have facilities. We have a number of improvements in the facilities category. Expenditures by funding source. Most of the funding is coming from the alternative funds, which is Bollinger Canyon Road Iron Horse Trail overcrossing, pavement management, which is a refuse vehicle impact fee, and then the Acosta rehab, the grant that we have received. Gas tax measure J is going towards pavement management, sidewalk, and ADA improvements. And then unidentified funds is the ITS master plan. So summarizing the revisions to the existing projects from prior year CIP, projects have been reprogrammed based on current development projections, based on funding availability of the various funding sources, change in project priorities and project scope, and looking at whole building renovations at one time as opposed to smaller renovations throughout all the buildings. So this reduces the overall disruption of public and increases cost efficiencies. So now I'm going to highlight projects in the 5-year CIP. I'll start with pavement management in the circulation category. Project cost for pavement management is 6 million. So there are various areas that will be treated: Crow Canyon Place, Crow Canyon Road, Deerwood, Dougherty Road, Executive Parkway, Old Crow Canyon Road, Old Ranch Road, Village Parkway, and local vicinity streets and streets north of Montevideo. So there's a lot that we've packaged together, and hopefully we can get some good bids because of the number of streets that have been identified. The Acosta Pavement Rehabilitation Project, construction will be in 2021 for $5 million. With this paving work, we will be maintaining a PCI of 75 over a 5-year period. And as I mentioned previously, the funding scenarios have been presented to the Infrastructure Committee. Funding, much of the funding is coming from the refuse vehicle impact fee, which started in we started collecting on July 1, 2018. So this table shows the funding that we will receive over the next 5 years. It does include a CPI inflation factor, which is the reason why it shows an increase in each of the years. And then I mentioned the trip load, which we are evaluating at this time. So the next project is the Iron Horse Trail pedestrian overcrossing. The environmental review has been completed, both the CEQA and the NEPA, and the agreement with CCTA for design has been completed, and the design consultant and cost estimator has been selected. So we're ready to move forward and go full swing with the design. So that will be the majority of the work happening in fiscal year 2021. We did receive, so I already talked about the financing for this project. Crow Canyon Road widening, El Costa Boulevard to east of Dougherty Road. This project is $26 million funded by SEC JIPA and Transportation Improvement Fund. There are a number of projects that are within this project scope, so we included it and wrapped it up in one big project. It made sense to address some of these. They're like intersection projects, turning lane type projects, so we wrapped them all together into one project, which is the TIF part of the funding. With the final plan line approved in 17-18, we've been working on the design. So 2021 will be pretty much focusing on the utility relocation, and then the construction of phase 1 will begin in 21-22, which is El Costa Boulevard to St. George, with St. George to east of Dougherty Road being further out in future years when we have the funding available.
So, excuse me, Maria, in this regard, does the utility relocation only happen to St. George, or are you doing it all the way to the end of Dougherty Road?
My understanding is that we're doing it all. I doesn't, I think
Okay.
it would to do it twice. So yeah, I'm sure that's the intent.
Thank you.
So citywide bicycle network improvements and enhancements, with the master plan developed, we have 1.01 million that is coming from the certificate of participation. Council members, so far you had talked about prioritizing the bike projects, and we have been consistent with following the master plan. There are prioritizations in the master plan, and this is where we took the projects as the highest priority and started those, and then we'll continue to evaluate that as we get more funding. But the 1 million plus will go towards installing bicycle improvements on Montevideo from San Ramon Valley Boulevard to El Costa, and implementing improvements on Dougherty Road, which should be class 2 buffered bike lanes from Dougherty North to Dougherty South.
So Maria, as part of the earlier improvements you mentioned, sorry, were you still finishing up?
Yeah, I had to correct myself on the streets. It's actually Dougherty from Crow Canyon to Old Ranch is the class 2 bike buffered. And then next year is Bollinger from Dougherty North to Dougherty South.
I was going to ask the improvements to Crow Canyon and all of that you mentioned earlier. I think you said, we were going to have the bike plan align with that as well. Is that still correct, or?
Yes, that is still correct. That's being integrated into that widening project. Citywide drainage infrastructure repairs. We received at mid-year 500,000 from the COP. We also had some funding received from the Drainage Mitigation Fund for 135. And we also applied for and received a grant in the amount of 80,000. So with this funding, we identified the priority work for 2021, and that includes the 36-inch culvert repair at Deerwood and Mill Creek. We have the drainage infrastructure inventory study for 100,000. The grant applies to that particular project. We have some sediment removal and mitigation work in a number of locations, as well as South San Ramon Creek access road improvements and miscellaneous repairs regarding drainage infrastructure. In the facilities category, we have the San Ramon Olympic Pool and building renovation, as well as the Dougherty Station and Dougherty Station Library and City Hall reconfiguration. And we also have a number of items at SROP, the San Ramon Olympic Pool and the Dougherty Valley Aquatic Center, various items that need replacements in the amount of 113,000. Interior amenities for 189,000. A bulk of that work is is for the Front Row Theater and doing some painting and replacement of various amenities in there. Citywide HVAC and roof repairs. Also in the facilities, highlighting the Forest Home Farm structures for 125, 800. We'll be painting the Welcome Center, the garage, and the meat locker. Improvements, this is headed by the Forest Home Farms Foundation, the Historic Foundation. Will be contributing $40,000, and that will complete the renovation of the barn with installation of electrical, lighting, and display boards to help illuminate the exhibits. And then we'll also be evaluating the needs for the grotto that was scheduled for upgrades and repairs for 2021. So we'll identify what needs to be done there. With the recreation program and facilities equipment replacement project, Public Parks is planning on converting stage theater light to LEDs, installing new control console for the Front Row Theater, speaker replacement and minor audio and visual upgrades at El Casa Senior Center, and rewiring for new audio and visual system replacement at the Olympic Pool. Moving on to landscape, the centralized irrigation system upgrade for $63,500. The number is in red because it has changed since the Finance Committee, where we have reduced the amount, so it minimized the impact to the general fund. So that was cut in, the Dougherty Valley portion was cut in half. Street landscape planting renovation, there is no funding. We'll use prior year funding for 2021 and then request funding in 21-22. Dougherty Valley Tree Management Program, again, we are not requesting any funding for 2021 as we received 1.22 million in mid-year of last year. So we're still playing catch up on the work in 1920. And then we have various improvements and repairs in the landscaping and lighting zones for 248,000. Oh, a highlight to the Canyon Lakes Fountain conversion project. So we're starting that back up again and I anticipate to complete that before the end of the calendar year. The comprehensive street camera installation for 1.27 million. We're working closely with the police department on implementing the project, and the target date to complete that is before the end of the calendar year. And for the open space preservation, we'll be receiving 500,000 for the free or preserved contribution as identified in the conditions of approval of development after 300 permits issued. In the parks category, we have a number of citywide parks amenities, replacements and improvements. The fountain repairs and replacements, that includes the Central Park Children's Fountain items, Meadow Fountain pumps, and the San Ramon, the Rancho San Ramon Children's Display Pump. And Councilmember Alone, you had asked the age of that, and that is 2014 when it was built. Public art irrigation booster pump installation, that number was also reduced. Those are the two numbers in red. So they were both reduced to highlight that there has been a reduction since the Finance Committee. Public art in the parks, the 40,000 plus any prior.
Maria, thanks for getting that number or that date. Is that sooner than expected, a 6-year replacement?
No, it's really not, especially the use. It's been very highly used.
Thanks.
Are we talking about the big fountain?
Rancho San Ramon.
Okay,
Yes.
No, we're talking about something else. Thank you.
The public art and parks, that funding is for the installation of an art piece at the library, and then we still have the Eagle that needs to land at Rancho San Ramon Park Phase 2. The Ring Rock Fountain conversion at Central Park, we're starting that one up again as well, with the anticipation to be completed late fall of this year. Parks and Community Services Master Plan is a CIP, and that is looking to be completed this coming fiscal year. And all these projects are funded by the Park Development Fund, and that is always dependent on the fees paid for by the developers. In the signals category, we have a few here. The first one is the automated traffic signal performance measures, which I mentioned earlier in the first budget presentation. So the total cost of that is $827,000. And the location is Bollinger Canyon Road from Talavera to Dougherty, and then Crow Canyon Road from Bollinger to Dougherty. And the whole purpose of this is to improve the travel time by monitoring and evaluating the corridor traffic signal performance and using the software, the new software, to improve the travel time for the traveling public. ITS upgrade, we have 1.5 million from the COP debt financing. This will improve signal communication. Conduit installation will be happening within the next 2 years for fiber optic work, and that includes for 2021 Bollinger Canyon Road from Talavera to Dougherty Road. So it's pretty exciting that in the signals traffic area, we have three projects that will really help with our traffic signal coordination system throughout the city. For pedestrian enhancement devices, we have 2 locations that are proposed. We did get a TDA grant for one of the locations, and that is a rectangular rapid flashing beacon at San Ramon Valley Boulevard at Safeway. And then the other location is the North Monarch Road at Japonica Way. And that is a result of the Transportation Division's group completing a Monarch crosswalk study corridor last year. Radar speed display signs for 31,000. FREA Preserve Development is required to put in 3, and then we have identified another location at Devona Drive at Winthrop Avenue. I'm getting a lot of complaints about speeding in that area. Residents had requested a speed hump there, and that is a collector. So we're looking at putting a radar speed display sign. And then finally, traffic signals improvements and enhancements. We have a number of upgrades and replacements happening there, as I mentioned previously. So all the funds are balanced. As Eva mentioned previously, no general fund contribution of 1.5 million. However, it will go negative in 21-22 if there's no contribution in the future years. Park Development Fund, that is subject to the Aspen Woods fees to be received. Otherwise, the fund will go negative in 2021. We pretty much reviewed the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund. The ending balance is 1.2 million. And it does not include the Dougherty Valley Tree Management Program and any future years for the Dougherty Valley trees, nor does it include any Dougherty Valley CSA funded projects. And this slide lists all the projects that are planned to be funded by the Infrastructure Maintenance Fund in a total amount of $660,000. This slide shows the Dougherty Valley CSA CIPs that are normally funded. And when we first proposed this project, these are all the scheduled projects and their associated costs that we first proposed, which is $453,000. But in looking at this more closely, we are proposing $83,840 to minimize the general fund impact contributing to the DVCSA CIPs. We will look at these projects again at mid-year and see if we need to add more funding to it, but I think that for now we're good with the $83,840. So tonight, the Planning Commission will review the 5-year CIP for general plan conformance. And as I mentioned on June 9th? June 2nd, Planning Commission will review the 5-year CIP, and then June 9th, City Council will adopt fiscal year 2021 budget, including the capital budget. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions.
If I could, can I go to public comment and then we can go back to questions?
Okay.
Madam Clerk, anybody would like to raise their hand?
For those in the audience that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen or *9 on your telephone at this time. It doesn't look like we have any requests to speak.
All right, I will close the public comment. Dave.
Yeah, I think it was page 21, Maria. You were talking about revenues we're paying for certain projects, and I was looking at something else at the time. And it struck me that nowhere in here, when we talk about revenues, is there anything from, it isn't there, but funding source, anything from 1B, that measure that was supposed to be getting us transportation dollars from the state?
I think that's in the gas tax measure J column.
Thank you, Maria. It's just under gas tax and measure J. There's nothing separate that would be, or I don't know if it's passed through CCTA. It's just there isn't anything there, is what you're saying.
No, there's not.
Sure, glad we supported that.
Phil.
It's part of the gas tax, right? I mean, 1B was gas tax, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Let's keep the
1B
gas
was
tax, so it's in the gas tax. There's money there. It's in the gas tax.
Yeah.
It's not like we didn't get anything.
It's folded together.
Complain about. I'm curious, did anything get cut out of the CIP? What was the total cuts of the CIP from when we started, other than the Dougherty stuff?
It's just the Dougherty Valley project.
It's completely within San Ramon now. Why does it get viewed separately? That just doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, the Dougherty CSA doesn't fund things, we fund things. And I don't understand that. Thank you. I mean, why does it get cut out? Why does it get treated separately when we said it's all part of San Ramon now? I don't get the thought process in the future. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, we're funding an Olympic pool for $2.5 million and say, oh, it's over here in South San Ramon. It's all San Ramon. And yet we treat this differently. We got 20-year-old fountain, we got 20-year-old stuff here. And I just don't think it's a good process for the future to carve it out somehow. So that's editorial commentary, but I'm fine with supporting all these, supporting the CIP as outlined.
So I'll just jump in real quick to provide a little clarity. It is challenging, you're right, council member. The biggest issue is that the CSA funding can only be spent within the CSA area. And so due to the settlement agreement and all the complexity of the 20-year settlement agreement, we have to continue to track the community or the CSA funding area and the revenues that come into that, and then apply them to the Dougherty Valley area that's within that.
But to the extent that we choose to spend more than the CSA has funding, we can do that, correct?
Yeah,
correct.
Okay.
Dave.
Yeah, it's not only can we do it, we do it. It's one of the things you never let us hear the end of when we separate the two, Phil. The problem is,
we spent $10 million on Olympic pools in my time on the council.
Yeah, but I'm talking about this CSA, and Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, it's one of the things that we went after in the beginning. Every time they do something like the CSA or like what East Bay Regional Park District has with the bond, there's an administration fee that's just, they ain't letting it go. My early recollection of what that CSA was going to bring in at the end, it was something like $25 million. And taking 5% of that, they like money. But the reality here is the CSA was supposedly, because of our policy that new development pays for itself, there was no way it was going to happen. All the fees are going to the county. So we set up a CSA and we do the best we can, and we got to ask for money every time to get anything from these people. But the reality is it's never going to be enough. And you're right, I don't have a problem if we have to pull from one side to the other, it's still San Ramon. But the reality is we should be able to get that CSA. And I think, if I'm wrong, that's what you're really saying. The CSA should be San Ramon. Now, how to do it, good luck. And if we don't, we're caught in the next measure when East Bay Regional Park District comes up of not getting money to people who contribute every single year, because they'll be left out other than what the whole city pays. But you're paying extra, and that's just, it's drives you nuts. I wish I didn't know about it.
Scott.
Yeah, along with what Dave's saying, you know, we aren't getting the vehicle license fees that we should have gotten from Dougherty Valley, and that's nearly $500,000. And you look at that CIP page right there, it's $500,000.
Exactly.
And we also aren't getting all the sales tax revenue that was projected when they started doing the numbers on this thing. There was going to be a second shopping center, and the second shopping center was going to generate some tens or hundreds of thousands of additional sales tax dollars. Well, that shopping center will not exist. Well, there'll be elements of it.
Great, be careful with that one.
You're right, Sabina. Elements of it will exist, but the shopping center as envisioned in 1994, 95, when all this was decided, will not exist as envisioned 25 years ago.
It's going to be 800,000 square feet.
Yes. So if we had just gotten what we get throughout the rest of the city, life would be very different today. But we aren't, and this is one of the oddball things that happens, and it's frustrating for all of us, Phil, and I wish it weren't so, but it is.
Oh, I get it. And let's face it, half of the square footage of the existing Gal Ranch Plaza is not sales tax generating services. So, you know, got a double whammy there too. I get it. And I appreciate the fact that, I mean, the trees, for instance, there's money to cover what needs to be done this year. So that's good. And we got to do a few little things here, so be it. And we can live for a year without planting renovations. Got to come out of somewhere.
Yep.
Plus, we did away with the 150,000 square feet at West Branch that was going to be a shopping center because of where Safeway is now. It didn't make sense to have two of them, but when you start adding it all up, yeah.
I don't have any more questions.
I'm good.
That UOP behind you, Phil?
Okay, should we be
Morrissey Manor, Dave. My dorm. I'm glad those walls can't talk.
Any other questions for staff? Any more direction?
Oh, I did have one clarifying thing. We moved the City Hall renovation got moved to this year, right, to the upcoming year, right? So to the extent that we said, it seems as though the dollars for that as it's currently listed appear to be in both years, right? So to the extent that we had it in the budget for the fiscal year we're in now, we should probably reduce that amount and show it in next year. So we'll see the actual delta, because right now it's getting kind of obscured, perhaps. Just something to be sure gets tracked properly.
Yeah, it's not showing up in there because there has been no action to allocate it to that project. We just assumed putting the CIP together that it would happen by the end of this fiscal year.
Right. So I was just wondering, and that's not in the total for this year, Maria?
Not for 20, 2019-20. No, it is not.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry.
Great. See no further direction. Maria, Joe, you got good direction? We set to go for the next item? All right, Madam Clerk.
Item 3.2, public hearing, ordinance next in line, adding chapter 4, electronic filing of disclosure statements to A3 Santa Rosa Municipal Code, and I will be presenting this item. The California Political Reform Act requires candidates for local offices to file campaign disclosure forms with the local filing officer. The city clerk is the local filing officer for the city. Currently, all campaign and economic interest forms filed locally with the city clerk are filed in hard copy. Government Code Section 84615 does allow local agencies to require all such filings to be made electronically with the local filing officer. In order to implement electronic filing, the local agency must provide an online system that complies with standards adopted by the California Secretary of State and adopt an ordinance authorizing the new system. For the city to accept electronic file statements, the council must adopt an ordinance permitting the use of an online filing system as an option for filing and designating the filings received electronically by the city clerk's office. In addition, the system must operate securely and effectively, be no cost to filers, and be available to the public to view filings, not place an unduly burden on filers, and include procedures for filers to comply with the requirement that they sign statements and reports under penalty of perjury. The system would make the campaign filing finance forms available through a portal on the city's website to the public immediately after they're filed, which would create an extra level of transparency for the public. In addition, in light of COVID, allowing elected officials, candidates, and committees to file electronically will continue to protect the health and safety of staff, officials, and the public by limiting the contact when submitting forms. There is no fiscal impact for adopting the Santa Rosa Municipal Code Amendment. The campaign software subscription was included in the fiscal year 2019-20 budget. And this evening, staff recommends that the City Council introduce the ordinance, waive the reading, and read by title only, open the public hearing, take public testimony, close the public hearing, and set the ordinance for adoption at the June 9th, 2020 City Council meeting. Any questions?
Do you need us to? Or
My computer is really slow, so I apologize. I think we're moving now to somebody either making a motion that we'll have a public hearing. Is that what I'm understanding?
Let's see, I'll move the ordinance next in line, waive the reading, read by title only, and let's see, and then set the ordinance for adoption at the June 9th, 2020 council meeting. That's my motion.
I'll second it. We are opening the public hearing in that too, I assumed.
That's what I'm going to do
Looking at
next.
something else. Thank you.
Okay, it's been seconded. Madam Clerk, is there anybody who'd like to talk on this issue?
For anyone in the audience that would like to speak, please use the raise your hand button or *9 on your telephone at this time. We do have one request to speak from Luz Gomez.
Good evening, everyone. Just really briefly, I think this is a good idea of being able to go in this direction. So thank you for implementing that.
Thank you.
That was the only request.
I think we lost him.
Seeing no other public comment, I'll close the public comment. Yeah, I'm going in and out. My apologies. Did she finish your comment?
Yes.
Yes.
Great, okay. Discussion.
I say, thank God.
That's an aye. Wait your turn, see?
My apologies. My thing is freezing up and I'm hearing bits and pieces. So is there, if you have a motion, we've had a second, and we've had public comment. We've finished public comment. Now we're into the discussion. Anybody want to make any comments?
What about?
Just said, thank God.
That's all right. Just want to make sure that I'm not missing something here. Madam Clerk.
Roll call vote.
Yes,
Councilmember Hudson,
yes, again.
Councilmember Alone. Can you say that one more time? You cut out. Thank you. Councilmember Perkins,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Zafar,
Yes,
and Mayor Clarkson.
it's frozen.
Forever and always.
This is Mayor Clarkson. I say aye. No,
He's got that 2080 baud modem, you know? Oh,
His
no.
grandkids are playing video games out there,
No, that could be.
sucking up all the internet.
Bill, is that an aye?
I think he's going to cut out and come back in again.
Through the vice mayor, we can probably take a vote on the 4 council members that are receiving.
4-0.
Receive it.
Yeah.
401.
The
Is that
motion,
okay, Martin?
4 in favor and 1 abstained, or 1 absent.
That would be 1 absent at this point.
Okay.
Hey, Vice Mayor.
Hey, I get
All
you
right.
here.
So the motion passes, right? And
And
if
we're done.
he comes back, when he comes back, Martin, is it just, he wasn't here kind of a thing?
He was absent for the vote. So that would be an absence.
So Christina, next item,
Item 4, adjournment.
right?
Wait a minute, can we discuss this? Do we stay on, Christina, or do we have to go off and do a new thing? And
We have to go off and do a new thing.
We have to go to
You've received a new link for the emergency meeting.
okay, thank you. So we're done?
We're all adjourned.
Yes, check your email for the new link.
Thank you.
Okay.